Welcome to Trojan Talk. This is episode 54. It's been a long layoff between episodes. I think it was the football season the last time we had a recording, but we're finally back, better late than never, and just in time for the Maine High School basketball tournament, which we'll get into quite a bit on this episode. We'll have a guest interview with Brandan Vitiello, who's a senior here at TA. He follows a lot of it, so we'll talk to him about the tournament that's coming up next week, but we're going to start with, of course, the Super Bowl and the Chiefs winning 25-22 over the 49ers this past Sunday. Patrick Mahomes, his third Super Bowl ring in his young career, only 28. I just want to get your thoughts on the game as we start off here. His third Super Bowl, he's inching closer to Tom Brady, not quite there yet, but how close do you think he could get once his career is over, and your overall thoughts on the game?
Well, I mean, I think we all learned as a country, you just don't bet against Pat Mahomes. I mean, they were a 1.5 point dog, and I was like, why are they down? And we just saw he's a winner, just like Tom. And I think at the end of the day, he's going to get really close. I mean, Tom had 6 with the Patriots, and then obviously a 7th with Tampa Bay. He's only 28. He's got really going into the prime of his career. Mm-hmm. So I don't see why he couldn't catch him, if not surpass him by age 35.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that Mahomes established himself as he's in a complete tier of his own. It is Patrick Mahomes, another tier, and then every other quarterback in the league. He is completely on his own. He can carry a team like no other quarterback in the NFL. The only guys who can remotely be considered in that kind of category where it's like they can single-handedly win you games, it's like, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. There are a couple others, but the problem Joe Burrow can't stay healthy at all. Josh Allen, yes, he does have the potential to single-handedly win you games, but he can also single-handedly lose you games because he has these turnovers that cost the Bills like an entire game, their season potentially. Mahomes doesn't make those same types of mistakes. Just like Tom Brady, he can come through when it matters the most. I mean, I definitely these past 2 years I've ruled the Chiefs out. Their receiving core is junk, so. I mean, on paper, it didn't seem like they should be able to compete after losing Tyreek Hill, but they're 7-0 in the playoffs and won 2 Super Bowls since Tyreek Hill is gone. So Mahomes is a beast. There's no doubt about that, but catching Brady is definitely going to be tough. I mean, you need 7 Super Bowls to tie, 8 to pass him, plus Brady is 2-0 against Mahomes. So that little ripple, too, is going to be kind of an argument point for those who are arguing Brady over Mahomes.
I think it's crazy how much they've literally remade the Patriots. They have the best quarterback of this generation, the best tight end of this generation, the best coach in Andy Reid, and then a defensive mind in Spagnuolo, who he's already, I think he was a head coach before and didn't
With the Rams.
Didn't have a ton of success. He's not going to go out and interview for another job. He's content to stay where he is. Like, most of the time when you have a defensive coordinator like him, he's going to be plucked by some other team, but that doesn't seem to be the case with Spags. He's just there year after year.
I think he's won 4 Super Bowls now as a defensive coordinator, so it's unbelievable success.
Which is crazy, but, I mean, it's just, I almost feel for the people that hated the Patriots all these years, and the Chiefs are kind of procrastinators. They had that meltdown on Christmas Day against the Raiders.
Yep.
It didn't look good at midway through the season. And then even in this game, it was kind of like a Super Bowl 53 between the Patriots and Rams all over again for the first half. The first half, the Chiefs were completely bottled up on offense. But once the fourth quarter rolls around and Mahomes needs a drive, he's going to get whatever he needs.
Yep.
Like whether he needs 3, they're down by 4, or he needs a touchdown to tie it. He's just going to will his team to win. You saw it on the 4th and 1. They put the ball in his hands. I don't know why the Niners would think it would go to anybody else in that scenario. Mahomes picks it up with his legs, gets it to go, and the Chiefs end up winning. It just felt, even though the game went to overtime and the Niners were up by 10 at a point in the first half, it just felt like you always knew who was going to win the game. So I definitely feel for all these people that have hated the Patriots for so long. But I want to get into the losing side of it, the 49ers. And there was so much controversy about Kyle Shanahan taking the ball out of overtime. His theory was, well, if both teams score, then we get the ball third and go down and are able to kick a field goal and win the game.
Yep.
I don't think you should be thinking that far ahead. I think you think about the first 2 possessions first. And anybody that watches college football knows that in overtime you take the ball second and react to what the other team did. Because like think about the Chiefs on that 4th and 1.
Yep,
If
the 34.
if they had gone first, they probably would have punted. But
Yep.
they knew that they needed points, so they went for it and got it, and eventually won the game. And then I think the Niners shouldn't have admitted that they didn't know the overtime rules. I think that's absolutely crazy. I mean, me as a fan knew it. How do the players on the field not know it? So,
I think some of those players are just trying to play blame game at this point. Honestly, they're
Right.
saying like, "Oh, well, our coaching staff didn't prepare us for the game," and trying to deflect off of their own performance. So, to me, though, it's like you said, though, it's like you should never say that publicly. Though it just makes you look silly too. It's like no one's telling you what you can't learn the rules your own too. That's the other thing.
And it's kind of pointing fingers at your coach, which is kind of a bad look too. It's like, oh no, it was because it's the coach's responsibility to inform the players. So if the players are saying they weren't informed, it's like Kyle Shanahan's the reason that we lost. It's almost like the players are saying that they're blaming Kyle Shanahan.
Yep, they are.
It's a bad look for sure.
I can't wait to see more of these overtimes going forward in the postseason when both teams get the ball, because there was some confusion about the clock, and I heard that it's basically like the start of a new quarter and you would get the ball at the same place.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Chiefs would have had to score before time ran out. That was a little bit confusing to me, but I think we have that cleared up now. And also another interesting scenario is, say the team gets the ball first, goes and scores a touchdown, kicks the extra point. If the second team responds by scoring a touchdown, do they go for 2? Because if you just kick the extra point, the next team just needs to kick a field goal and they win. So
Right.
you might as well, if your offense is rolling, go ahead and try and win the game right there, because then your defense would really have to make a stand and not even let the other team into field goal range. So I think there are a lot of different strategies that you can deploy here in this new overtime scenario. Do you have any thoughts on that? If you were the team that scored a touchdown second, are you going for 2?
No, not in the Super Bowl. I mean, I'm not Dan Campbell. maybe the Lions would have, but no. I mean, in that situation, it's like there's just too much at stake. I mean, again,
Even though if
you
a
have to
team
see
only needs a field goal when they get the ball back?
Yeah, I mean, you have to see the game flow. It's like, I have to say, like, well, how's my kicker doing? What's his confidence at in that moment? I mean, teams usually have a good feel for that. It's tough to just play it on an analytics-only perspective. I think at the end of the day, you have to have a little bit of a feel for your team and their, personality in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have to keep in mind who your quarterback is. If my quarterback's Patrick Mahomes, I'm much more comfortable going for 2 than if I have Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi. That's definitely something you have to think about. And going back to kind of what we were talking about with Shanahan, I agree with you. I don't think you should be thinking too far into the future to have like, I want the ball third. Especially when you're playing Patrick Mahomes. I know this is like the Patrick Mahomes show now, where we're all like, he's the greatest thing or whatever. But I mean, if you're going up against Patrick Mahomes, you do not want to put yourself in a position where he has 4 downs to beat you. If he has 4 downs, all he needs is a touchdown, and he can end your season and win the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't like those odds when I'm playing against Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, you mentioned looking too far ahead in the future, and I completely agree. I think you just focus on those first 2 possessions, and team goes down, what do I need to do to respond to that? I mean, that's how it works in college, and I think Kyle Shanahan should have used that. I don't think they lost the game because of it. Obviously, they had plenty of chances in the red zone. Purdy missed a throw, I think, at some point there, so they ended up having to kick a field goal. But wild game. Chiefs win again. It's going to take a lot for them to really match, because the Patriots really had 2 dynasties.
They did. Yeah,
there was
absolutely.
a break in between, and even the break, they made 2 Super Bowls, but unfortunately lost both to the Giants.
Yep.
But then came back and won 3
out of 4.
Yeah.
3 more in from Super Bowl 49 to 53.
Yep.
So it's going to take a lot for them to do. They really need the longevity, but they are certainly a dynasty. There's no doubt about it. Let's transition to some local sports and talk about Thornton Academy Hockey, who has the best record of any of the winter sports teams here on campus, or I shouldn't say on campus. The Biddeford Ice Arena is where they play their home games. They sit at 11-2. However, they're only 4th in the Class A standings. That's because some teams have played more games against them, and to be honest, they haven't played as tough of a schedule as some of these other teams. Part of that is they were supposed to have 2 games against Bangor, who's the number 1 team right now, already played, but due to various reasons, both of those games have ended up being postponed to some point in mid-February. So those will be some big chances to get some heel points. But I want to ask, with players like Jake Marcotte and Brady Pecora, and then 2 new additions to the team, freshman Brennan Tabor and then Nick Downing, who transferred in, this team seems to be on a roll. How confident are you in a back-to-back ring for this team?
I mean, I would say in Class A, it seems like this year it's very wide open. I think they have as good a chance as anyone. Certainly, like you alluded to perfectly, Cole, the 2 Bangor games being postponed. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'd like to space them out. It sounds like it's going to be a little congested at the end of the regular season. They're going to have to get those games in for seeding purposes. So, that will be the real litmus test for this team. They've had some ups and downs. 11-2, great mark. But yeah, certainly, like you said, they haven't faced the media schedule, so to speak, on paper so far. But winning 11 out of 13, I don't care who you're playing. That's still pretty significant.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're more than capable of getting it done. I know hockey sometimes can be kind of like who's hot at the right time if the goalie's on fire. I know the Beanpot was last night, and BU against Northeastern for anybody who didn't watch, but BU seemed like they were playing a better game than Northeastern almost the whole time. They were like dominating time of possession. They had way more shots on goal. But Northeastern still won because they.
Good thing Mr. C's not here.
Yeah, don't mention that. To him.
Yeah. So anyway, it can be a little bit fluky at times and who's hot and stuff, but they're definitely more than capable. They're a good team. So.
Yeah, their signature win is a 2-1 win over Falmouth, who they play once again this Saturday. They have some other tough games coming up. They have St. Dom's at one point, and like I mentioned, Bangor twice. But Jake Marcotte leads the team with 21 points. He's top 10 in Class A in that mark. Brady Pecora has 16. And I say top 10, which you think like TA is arguably the best team in Class A. Wouldn't they have somebody top 5? I think it's because they spread around a lot of the goal scoring. And Nick Downing has really had a breakout year for this team as their 3rd leading point getter. And Brennan Tabor had a pair of goals, I believe, in I think it was their most recent game. It was against Scarborough at USM.
Yep.
So good to see the freshman getting involved. And I think Drew Johnson has established himself as one of the best goalies in the whole state, which is so huge for them. They had Porter Krause last year. Johnson was kind of the 1B, and now he's the guy, and he's had a great season. So TA hockey team's rolling. We'll see how they do come playoff time. Now we'll transition to basketball, and this part will be more TA specific. We'll get into statewide when we talk to Brandon in just a second. But TA boys basketball has not been having the greatest season. They went on a 12-game losing streak. However, they were in a lot of those games, and they could have won a lot of them, but they snapped that in the final game of the regular season against Bonnie Eagle. Wyatt Benoit went off with a 43-point double-double. He shot 74% from the field in that game. Just ridiculous. And I think he had 11 free throws as well. So, Troy, I'll start with you. They play South Portland in the quarterfinals this Thursday, a team that they got swept by in the regular season, but both games were somewhat close. What are your thoughts on that game, and how do they upset the Red Riots on their home court?
Well, I mean, yeah, it certainly hasn't been the most ideal season for the boys. I mean, 12-game losing streak is obviously difficult. They've been a little bit sloppy at times. They've been a little bit passive. But, I mean, if you have a guy like Wyatt Benoit that has the ability to drop 43 points on efficient shooting, I mean, they can beat any team. If you're hot, you can beat any team. So they'll definitely have a chance, no doubt about that.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue for the team, and I've seen most of their games this year in some capacity, whether it be live or online, they just don't have a consistent, 3-point threat. They don't really space teams out great on the offensive end for themselves. Obviously, Wyatt's a great athlete, great scorer. He finds creative ways to score, which is great to see. We just need to, maybe get a little bit more creative. You'd like to think that hopefully someone here in the next few weeks for this playoff run, if they can go on one, can get hot, from shooting. Even if it's just an elongated 2, just have that threat there. That's obviously going to allow Wyatt to get a little bit more lane to drive as well, and that's his strong suit. But again, it's tournament time. At this point, everyone's 0-0, as we like to say. We'll pull out the cliches here. But, I think TA played SoPo really well in their 2 games in the regular season. I think this is going to be a contest on Thursday. Yes, it's at South Portland. Yes, it's going to be busy and loud there. But, I think TA is probably quietly happy that they drew SoPo here in the quarterfinal.
Last time they played, it was at South Portland. TA went into the half with a 9-point lead and unfortunately gave it up fairly quickly in the third quarter. But if they can play like they did in the first half of that game, they could pull off the upset. I think the key for them is rebounding defensively. They can't let South Portland get second and third chance opportunities. I broadcasted a game for WHOU. It was South Portland versus Deering. Darius Johnson is kind of South Portland's third option. He had 20 rebounds in that game. 11 of those were offensive rebounds. He's a machine on the glass, and they're going to have to contain him and not let South Portland get offensive rebounds if they're going to win this game. And then the girls, they play as well on the road. It's not really a secret that it's been a disappointing year for them. They came in expecting to be one of the best teams in the whole state, regardless of class, if not the best. But they failed to get a home playoff game. But again, bring out the cliches. Everybody's 0-0. They could go out and beat a Sanford team that they beat twice in the regular season, and they still have good players in Emma Lizotte. I know Addison Sulikowski's questionable. I don't know I think Kylie Lamson should be back. I heard that she was going to get cleared at some point in the past week or so. So we'll see who they roll out there. But we'll see what happens against Sanford and a team that I think they could beat.
Yeah, I think, kind of like what we were just saying with the boys, it's like they just need one more guy to really get hot here and catch fire just to help out Wyatt and the rest of the team and just kind of facilitate things. I think the return of Lamson, if she can come back, is going to be that same spark plug for the girls. She's a dynamic point guard, had an unbelievable freshman year last year, perhaps one of the best freshman years out of anyone in the state of Maine. And they were obviously looking at her to be that point guard and that facilitator this year. And it just didn't, obviously due to injury, did not happen. And I think that was obviously part of the equation of them having a disappointing season. But, they certainly have some of the most talented players in the state. Obviously Sulikowski, if she can go, Lamson, if she can go, and obviously Lizotte is perhaps one of the best centers in the state. They have the pieces there. It's just a matter of putting it together here in obviously a short amount of time. But same thing as the boys, I think they're probably quietly happy that they pulled Sanford, who, as you said, they beat twice in the regular season.
Yeah, like you said, I think getting Lamson back would be massive for them. Spark plug offensively, no doubt about that. Point guard, facilitator, all those things. We've mentioned that they've struggled a little bit with their depth, so getting a piece like Lamson back to help out the offense, help out the entire team. She's one of those people, just overall helps the spacing of the court, and I think it would go a long way for them if Lamson comes back.
We'll get into this some more with Brandon, but I think if you look at all the quarterfinal matchups out of AA, boys or girls, north or south, this TA Sanford game is the biggest toss-up because TA won twice in the regular season, but Sanford is the higher seed. They've had some impressive wins. They've got some seniors that are looking to finish out their career with a playoff run, but so does TA with Sulikowski and Lizotte, so we'll see how it goes. I think you really saw Lizotte in attack mode against Bonnie Eagle in TA's last game of the regular season. So I think if they can just feed her the rock and if she's as aggressive as she was in that game, then TA has a good chance. I listened to the Big Time Hoops podcast, and Coach Abby, who does a great job on there, was saying that he told Emma after the game, if she can play like she's 22 points away from 1,000 every night, they'll be ready to go. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that game plays out. But we're going to take a quick break and be back with a Maine high school basketball tournament preview with Brandan Vitiello here on Trojan Talk. All right, we are back here with a special guest interview. Brandan Vitiello now joins us on Trojan Talk to talk about the Maine high school basketball tournament. Let's just start with this. How excited are you after such a wild basketball season to finally get these playoff games going?
Very excited. I think Maine basketball in the last couple of years has really grown, and there's a lot of attention, even without stars like Cooper Flagg and JP Estrella. I think just the excitement for high school kids, in even regular adult fans, everybody just really loves the February vacation high school tournament.
So what we're going to be talking about, we're going to take it region by region. We're going to start with the boys, talk about AA South, then we'll move to AA North, then we'll move into a little bit of Class A South as well, because we follow a bit of that too. And then we'll talk about the girls' Class AA North and South. So starting with AA South, and we'll talk about the Gorham Rams first. What have you seen from them this season? They're the number one seed in the South. Ashton LeClaire is looking like a Mr. Maine basketball candidate. Gabe Mishu, Caden Smith, great players. But the thing about them is that they have underachieved historically in the playoffs these last two seasons, haven't gotten out of the quarterfinal rounds with this core that they have. Do you expect more of the same this year, or do you think that they can get over the hump and put together a run?
I think this team, more than last year's team in particular, is more built to go on a run. It's hard for me because they really rely on shooting the three specifically. They don't drive a lot of kick-out threes, and I think if they're hitting the threes, nobody in the South, and I don't even think anyone in the North is going to beat them. But they had a loss to Chevrolet this year where I saw on Twitter they shot 14% from the field and like 10% from three. That's just not going to cut it. Obviously, Ashton Leclerc, I think he's the best player in AA. He can light it up, and I think this year with Witten off the bench and Griffin Gammon down low, they have like more options other than just relying on the three. I picked them to win, but I don't know if I'm comfortable.
We'll get into the state final picks later.
I don't know. I'd say I think they can go on a run, but I don't know if I'm confident in that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there could definitely be a day where they get to the Cross Insurance Arena and don't shoot very well and go home early, but they could also hit and go on and win a state championship. So Scarborough, the number 2 seed in Class AA South, but the number 3 seed I think is really interesting because it's the defending champs, and they started out the season with 5 losses. They were 0-5, but they've really rallied to pick up a home playoff game led by guys like Gabe Galarraga, who's a talented guard, Gabe Galarraga is the big man. Manny Hidalgo is a talented guard. But a guy like Darius Johnson is somebody that's really come along this season.
Yeah, I think South Portland, they started 0-5, you said. They've won 5 of their last 6. They had a 30-point win to end the regular season at home against Sanford.
Yeah.
I think Hidalgo, he's the shiftiest guard you're going to find. Spin moves, drives, layups. He can hit the 3. Galarraga, I think he's the best big man in AA. You said Darius Johnson. I think you called that game against Deering. He had like 20 rebounds or something crazy. He's come on. Gabe Jackson and Tom Maloji, big pieces. So I think I always knew Kevin Millington has his team ready to play in February, and this year's no different. Do they have the star power of years past? No, but can they go on a run? Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're a good team, but I don't think they have like the upside of years past with Jalen Jackson and JP, of course, like you said. The rest of the quarterfinals, the 4-5 matchup is interesting. Usually that game is somewhat of a toss-up, but I actually think that the lower seed in that game has a big advantage. I'd be pretty surprised if Sanford, coming off of a 30-point loss to South Portland, is able to beat a Deering team that's knocked off teams like Gorham. They've had Evan Lagasse, who's one of the best players in all of AA South. What are your thoughts on that game?
I was written down that there was a rebound year for Deering. You know, they've struggled in many years past, but Evan Lagasse, I think he might be maybe like an MVP, like the best, most valuable player to his team. And yeah, I said after a 30-point loss to Sopo, I don't think the mental state of Sanford is going to be that good. Makai Buji averages 15 and 10, so he would have to have a big game for them to win, but I picked Deering to win that game.
And then the rest of the quarterfinals, TA versus South Portland. We talked about South Portland. Scarborough Bonnie Eagle, those two had a double overtime battle just a couple of weeks ago. What are your thoughts on this Scarborough team? First, do you think they'll make it out of the quarterfinals, and what do you think their ceiling really is?
Ceiling, I mean, I guess ceiling is the state championship appearance. I don't think they can beat Gorham and then a Chevrolet or Portland. I think they have solid in, you've got seniors like Liam Jeffords and Liam Garrity, and then a young core in Carter Blanche and Spencer Booth. I think that Bonnie Eagle gave them a real test, but that was in Standish. I think at home it should be an easy win for Scarborough, and I don't know, maybe they can get past Gorham, but looking ahead, I don't know. I think their ceiling's probably an appearance in the state championship.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't even say appearance in the state championship. I don't really see them beating Gorham again. Or not again, they haven't yet. But now let's move to the north. And if you haven't been following all year long, the south has been kind of Gorham and everybody else. But in the north, it's 3 teams that have really stood alone. It's been Wyndham, who's the 1 seed, Chevrolet, the 2 seed, and Portland, the defending north champion, is sitting at number 3. Which one of those teams do you trust the most, and which one do you trust the least?
I trust Portland the most. Kevin Rugabirwa and Pepito Niragamisha, they have both started guards last year for Portland when they made a state championship appearance. Cordell Jones, big transfer from Gorham. He's been big for them. Drew Velo has emerged. I trust them the most. They play at the Expo all the time, big arena, and I think that big game environment. And then the least, it has to be Wyndham. They have a great record. They faced adversity, but they've had to come back from double digits against a pretty poor Lewiston team, and then a buzzer beater against Oxford Hills. I don't really know. They don't have any experience.
But Oxford Hills beat Portland.
I don't know. I just think I don't trust Wyndham personally, and they also were down to EL late in that game too and had to come back. So I think that if they have an off night, they could go down to anybody.
I actually had the same exact thing as you. I trust Portland the most, despite them getting swept by Chevrolet in the regular season. The one thing that they did that Chevrolet didn't do is beat Wyndham, and I just think that Portland's game translates to the tournament the best. Joe Russo likes to dial up the defense a lot at this point in the season, as you mentioned. Rugabirwa, Gira Magisha. They have Jesse Kamas down low, who was the best player maybe in the whole tournament. He won the outstanding player in the AA North last year. And people love to talk about their defense. That's the first thing they'll bring up. But they also have 3 of the top 10 scorers in AA North in Drew Vayu, Kevin Rugabirwa, and Jesse Kamas. So I think they're a good offensive team as well. Wyndham's going to have to prove it. They were kind of the breakout team of this season, surprised a lot of people. People expected Chevrolet and Portland to be good. I don't think they really expected Wyndham to be good. So we'll see if they can prove it on the big stage. I think they're a good team, but I think they'll probably fall in a regional final game. But we'll have to see. And then Oxford Hills and Edward Little are kind of the 2 teams that have been pegged all season long as teams that could potentially pull off an upset. Oxford Hills beat Portland. Edward Little almost beat Chevrolet. What are your thoughts on those teams? Do you think it's a foregone conclusion that it's going to be Portland and Chevrolet in the semifinals, or do you think one of those teams could lose?
I think it's a foregone conclusion for a simple reason. You have 5 players on the court at a time, and I think that while Oxford Hills has Braden Murch and Carter Holbrook, solid players, and Holden Shaw, and Edward Little has Marshall Adams and Eli St. Laurent. You need 5 guys on the court, and I don't think that those 4 or 5 guys that are in their rotation, even if you have a 6-man on the bench, I don't think they can compete with Portland or Wyndham or Chevrolet, and I just don't see them pulling an upset.
I could. I mean, Edward Little is maybe the best coach team in AA with Mike Adams.
Yeah, he's a great coach.
They've got senior leaders. That's the thing. You look at a team that has seniors that have been there before. Guys like Marshall Adams and Eli St. Laurent. They played on the team with John Shea a couple years ago, so they've seen basketball in Maine at the highest level. I think Edward Little could pull off an upset. I don't really see Oxford Hills doing it, but if I had to pick, I would definitely go with Chevrolet and Wyndham to escape the first round. And, of course, Wyndham won't even have to play because they have a bye.
Right.
So let's make some picks, and we'll get into our picks for the other regions once we get there. And I'll bring in Troy here. What is your state championship prediction for Class AA, and who wins?
Thornton Academy. I think Portland for the North. I would agree with that. And for the South, I'm gonna say Gorham. I'm gonna say Gorham and Portland.
I have Gorham and Portland too, but I'm not so confident on that. I kept flirting back and forth with Gorham and South Portland for the South, but I think Gorham will get there. And then Portland, their experience at the Civic Center, I just think Chevrolet hasn't really had success there. And then obviously Wyndham didn't even make the playoffs last year, so they just don't have experience. If it gets to a 3-4 point game with a couple minutes left, who are they going to turn to? And I just don't think that those Tyree James, AJ Moody, I don't know if they have it for Wyndham in a big game.
Wow, so we all picked the same 3, but I'll give you something else just to change it up. I think that Gorham will win the South just because I don't really trust any of the other teams. I don't think South Portland has the firepower that they've had in years past. Their role players are, I don't want to say underwhelming because they do a lot of good things, but I don't think that they can have a spectacular game to beat Gorham in the postseason. At Scarborough, they're a really solid team. I just don't see them beating Gorham. So Gorham comes out of the South. Out of the North, I would have said Portland, but to switch it up here, I'll go with the team that we kind of broke down Wyndham. We broke down Portland. I'll go with Chevrolet, the team that beat Portland twice in the regular season. Leo McNabb is a baller, and he can pull up from anywhere on the court. He's a great ball handler. And I think that the guard duo with him and Sammy Ziamana is that true point guard, a distributor, and Leo McNabb is a great shooter and can really separate off the dribble as well. And Jamison Fitzpatrick.
I was going to add him, yeah.
He's had a great season this year. And Gio McNabb missed that Portland game, and Chevrolet was still able to come out with a win. So it shows how well coached they are. And I think they really took advantage of Portland's mistakes, a couple technical fouls, and just some disciplinary issues for Portland.
I know you called that game, and I saw that Jesse didn't get any position down low for Portland, so I think Chevrolet.
He was in foul trouble.
Oh, he was in foul. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll go with Chevrolet. But interesting that neither of us are very high on Wyndham because I know a lot of people are. They are the 1 seed, and they beat Portland. They beat Chevrolet, so we'll see how it goes. And now we will move to Class A, so a step below AA, and just talk about the South because that's kind of in our area. This is a loaded class, which is why I wanted to talk about them. We've got Grey New Gloucester, the number 1 seed. Falmouth is the 2. Noble, the 3. Freeport, the 4. I'll just start on this. I've been high on Falmouth all year long, and they've been my pick to win Class A. I just think Chris Simons is such a good player. He's almost like a Joel Embiid type player, the way he's like quick in the post. He can also pass the ball, shoot it. And I think this is kind of a revenge tour for Falmouth because 2 years ago, they would have won it. They had a stacked team, but they ran into Cooper and Ace Flag, and nobody was going to beat them. That's just a special scenario when you're playing the best player that's probably ever going to come out of the state of Maine. And then last year, they lost on a game-winning layup by 1 point to a Brewer team that was very strong. I think they're due for a championship. They're maybe the best coached team in the state with Dave Halligan. And I think that Chris Simons is a star that you can build around. Noble's a great team. They're flashy. They've got Jameer Rose and Bryce Guittard, 2 great guards that can handle the ball for them. But I think they're still a year away, and I'm going with Falmouth to win this region.
Okay, so the North is the South is absolutely stacked.
Yeah.
I think there's a bunch of really good teams with star players on it. G&G, everyone's been going crazy about them. There's a bunch of stuff on Instagram, posts and stuff about them. They're flashy, but if you look at them, they haven't had any success. Everyone's like talking about the trio with the Heberts. Nate Heber, I think he's one of the top guards, and then they had that Johnny Patinode transferred from Poland. They are the 1 seed, but their first game of the year, they played Falmouth and got 20-pieced. So I think that kind of shows a disparity. I don't know if Falmouth has the talent they've had in years past, but as you said, Simons in the post, he's unstoppable. We saw it when he played TA. He just picked apart the defense. And Billy Burks, 10 points a game. He's the point guard, and I think that'll be enough. And then Jameer Rose, I love him. I personally think he's the best player in the state, regardless of class.
Wow.
He's averaging 21 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists a game, which is incredible. But yeah, they're still a year away. Overall, they don't have any other real pieces besides for Guittard.
Yeah, Falmouth isn't the flashy pick, and like you said, Gray New Gloucester and Noble have been getting a lot of the hype. But I think that Falmouth, they beat Noble, they beat Gray New Gloucester, and I think they're a battle-tested team, and I think they're going to win it despite not having as much talent as last year, as you said. And they were able to make a run last year with Simons on the bench hurt, but they don't have Judd Armstrong anymore, and I think Simons is going to be that guy this year for them. So let's
One team to watch out is Kenny Bunk with Theo Powell.
I know you love Theo Powell.
Yeah, well, because he can dunk really well.
Yeah, he's the best dunker in the state.
Yeah.
I don't know if he really has much of a team around him. I know they have that Cole Perkins kid, but we'll
they're
see.
Sleeper. We'll see.
I think they're the 5 seed.
I believe so.
So they'll
Freeport.
play Freeport in the first round. I think they could win that game. Freeport is they started off the year well.
They've lost like 4 or 5.
Yeah, so picks for Class. We'll go Class A overall. I know Hampton and Mount Blue are kind of the 2 top teams in the North.
I got Hampton Academy coming out of the North. Zach McLaughlin. This is like his legacy year to cement himself. So I got him coming out of the North and Falmouth in the South. But Falmouth's just a different animal down here than Mount Blue or any other teams up north. And so Falmouth, I have them by double digits.
We made the same pick twice. Well, I guess I technically went with Chevrolet on the last one, but I agree. Falmouth as the 2 seed will come out of Class A South, and then Hampton Academy in the North. But we'll see that Evan Sterling guy from Mount Blue is pretty good as well. So now let's talk about the Mr. Maine race before we get to the girls. Just want to touch on it real quick because we have limited time. But your favorites for Mr. Maine basketball?
Personally, no one cemented it in my book. I still have it up as a 4-way race between Zach McLaughlin of Hampden, Ashton Leclerc of Gorham, Chance Mercier of Ellsworth, and Pierce Walston of Orono. None of them have really cemented it, in my opinion, but I think this year's postseason
no Carter
success,
Galley?
I do not have him on my list as top 4. I think
Strength of schedule.
I mean, some of the teams that they play, the garbage time points, I just don't see that. So probably my favorite right now would be Chance Mercier, but if Zach McLaughlin can lead Hampden to a state championship, then he might go ahead in my book, or Ashton, depending on what happens with Gorham.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big debate as to whether or not it's a 4-year award, but I heard Travis Lee say it's kind of up to the voter as to whether or not you want to make it about just the senior season or all 4 years. I also think it's a 4-way race, but I would swap out Walston with Carter Galley, which is interesting because there's only 3 finalist spots, and so one of those 4 guys is going to get left out.
Right.
And I think McLaughlin will win it, especially well, we'll see who wins state championships.
Right.
Like Chance Mercier, if he wins it and LeClaire and McLaughlin don't, then I think that he could probably win it.
Can we point out that Gabe Galarraga and Chris Simons were left off the semifinalist list, and I was kind of shocked by that.
I was very shocked by Simons because I had him in my top 5 at one point this season.
There's no way.
Galarraga, that's debatable, but yeah, there were definitely a lot of snubs and some guys that I don't.
Sam Calder, Monmouth Academy.
We don't need to call anybody out, but okay. Now we'll switch to the girls, and Double A South has been unpredictable all season long. Gorham seems like the safest pick right now. South Portland, a young team that nobody expected to be where they are. They finished as the number 2 seed and swept Gorham on the season, but I think they peaked a little bit early. I still think Gorham is the safest pick to come out of this region.
I agree they're the safest pick. I don't think they definitely don't have the highest ceiling overall, but they're the safest pick. Ellie Gay I think she was a AA South tournament MVP last year when they upset TA in the regional final. Julissa McBaron leads Sanford. There's Caroline Hartley with Scarborough, and then that young core, a lot of freshmen and sophomores with South Portland, and obviously TA. I'm picking TA to come out.
Wow, of the whole of the region.
Of the AA South. I think, this is all dependent on Kylie Lamson's health. If she's not healthy, Gorham is easily going to beat them. But if she's healthy, I think they come out of the South. They just have too much star power for the other teams.
As much as I want to pick TA, I think we've seen who they are at this point in the season. They don't have depth, even if they have the 3 stars healthy. And I know Sulikowski's been dealing with some sicknesses, so we'll see if she gets
Just
back.
you wait, Cole. Somebody's gonna emerge.
just
Somebody's
you
gonna
wait.
emerge. I'm telling you.
I don't
Just
know.
you wait.
I don't see it happening. But Scarborough, they have not really proven to be able to beat Gorham, so that kind of rules them out for me. So I'm going to take the safe pick on this one and go Gorham out of AA South. And the North, I mean, it's been Chevrolet and everyone else. It's been such a dominant season for Maddie Fitzpatrick and company. She's really cemented herself. We know she's going to win Miss Maine, but she's cemented herself as one of the all-time best players in Maine in recent memory.
Oh, in recent memory, I think there was Allie Clement at Macaulay years back had won 4 Class A championships, and people always talk about that Sydney Blodgett girl who went and played at UMaine, but she's obviously one of the best players that Maine's ever had for girls. I think Chevrolet is probably going to win. I actually think it's going to be close in the regional final with Oxford Hills, probably single digits. Because they got 3-point shooter Tristan Darrenberger back.
Yeah,
from
and Oxford
injury.
Hills came within 4 points of Chevrolet and almost beat them.
So, and then Ella Pelletier, she's a stud. So I think that game will be close, but Chevrolet has too much.
I would be surprised if Chevrolet loses, but I wouldn't be completely shocked. I mean, they went 18 in a row, so if you beat them, it's automatically like the upset of the tournament if that happens. But, I mean, Ruth Bowles is such a great second option next to Maddie Fitzpatrick. She's taken over some games as well. Megan Dearborn's a great 3-point shooter. Anna Goodman and Rachel Feely round out the starting lineup. I've been able to see a lot of them this year with the WHOU broadcasts, and so they're definitely a wagon and finished off their season last night against Portland, 18-0 season. So I think it'll be Gorham and Chevrolet in the state championship, and this is going to sound like a little bit of a hot take, but I think Oxford Hills has a better chance of upsetting Chevrolet than anyone in the South does.
Oh, I know I don't think that's a hot take at all. I easily think the Ella Pelletier I think she's much better than any of the stars of the South teams, and if she can get hot, maybe drop 30 or something in a big game, they easily have the best chance to upset Chevrolet.
So I'm going Chevrolet over Gorham in the state championship.
I'm going Chevrolet over TA in the state championship.
Troy, you got a pick?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go Chevrolet over Gorham as well.
All right, so let's see. Is that it? That is it, it looks like, for our tournament preview. It's going to be an exciting time.
Should be exciting.
Yeah, we've got some games at the Expo, the Cross Insurance Arena, and I'm expecting a lot of upsets because parity has been an all-time high this year. Do you have any other thoughts as we wrap up?
I just think it's going to be a really exciting tournament. I know you guys, before I came on, talked about TA. I think they could be really intriguing with Wyatt if he can score a lot of points. So they might be big. I just think it's going to be a fun tournament. I'm going to spend a lot of time either at the Cross Insurance Center or at the Expo in Portland, and I think it's going to be a fun week.
All right, let's send it back to the regular Trojan Talk. All right, we want to thank Brandan Vitiello for coming in and previewing what should be a very exciting Maine High School basketball tournament coming up here this next week. And that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Trojan Talk. Be on the lookout on our social medias for some possible live streams, especially the boys hockey team is going to have some games coming up that we could possibly live stream. We don't know which exactly we're going to do, but be on the lookout for that. And thank you all for watching and have a great day.